Hindi naman yun yung main question namin, but ang ano nila is, sabi ko po, ano po magiging, ang isa sa mga tanong ko sa kanila is, ano po ang view ninyo, lalo na sa itong lugar nyo protected na parang sa inyo po talaga ito na holy place. And syempre po, dumadaan din yan yung mga, ano mo tawag ito, syempre nandun din po yung MI na papadaan po dun minsan. And they really admitted that the MILF are really like, parang in a way convincing them to join them. Hindi naman join na ano, kundi sabay natin ipaglaban yung ating ano tawag dito, yung ating mga karapatan sa pag-ari ng Mindanao. So, ang ano ko lang po is, tumatanggi po sila doon. So, sabi nila, kami naintindihan namin kung ano ang inyong gustong ipaglaban, but wag nyo lang kami idamay. Parang, sige, papadaanin namin kayo. Welcoming din po sila. And then, sabi ko, so, ano po yung malinaw po doon kung ano ang kanilang tinatayuan pagdating sa armed struggle, and kahit sabihin na natin na umano sa gobyerno, no? Kumbaga, ano ba, kalabanin ang gobyerno kasi sa ganung termino. And then, meron din naman pong usapin na I asked them about yung issue ng environmental na part naman, no? Na parang, I know that there have been several attempts from mining companies and yung parang magtayo po ng, yun nga, yung konsepto ng development ng iba, no? Na i-develop daw yung area as siguro parang mumula ng mga troso at saka yung mga ganun. Sabi nila, kasi ko, ano po ang inyong naging kayo doon? Sabi niya, kung kami ang tatanungin, yung hindi lang naman isang ano yun, tingway, kundi madami po sa kanila. Sabi nila is, ano po talaga sila, ano tawag dito, makikiusap sila, ilang beses silang tatawag sa gobyerno, makikipag-dialogo. Pero, kapag merong kasunduan o pinirmahan ng gobyerno na talagang papapasukin ito, hindi po sila tatanggi. So, sabi niya, pero makikiusap kami hanggang sa huli, sabi niya. Pero kung ano, hindi sila yung tipong, kung mga sabi sa, nakakaintindi po kayo sa hindi sila makigbisog, maraga na. So, sa ano yun, ito yung latest, no? Siguro yung mga unang panahon medyo may relatively pa sana songs ano. Pero dun po, sa tingin niyo po ba, so my question really is, sa tingin niyo po ba may problema sa ganitong pagtanaw na ng ating mga indigenous people or this particular group na kung tutusin solid pa sila and ano. Sa tingin niyo po ba may problema sa kanilang sense ng self-determination at saka ng ano ba tawag dito yun? Meron bang may kanilang emancipation na concept? So,
okay, thank you. A while ago, I mentioned na the lumad problem or lumad issue should not be separated from the national, even global issue. No? Ang problema talaga dito is the plunder of natural resources of the whole island of Mindanao. At whether affected yung lumad or not, eventually, kasi nakikita talaga na, di ba, I presented a while ago na mag-expand yung land grabbing, yung expansion ng mga mining corporations, mag-expand sila. Sa ngayon, most probably, hindi pa sila apektado. But time will come talaga na eventually they will be affected by this issue. And isa sa nakakalungkot dyan na nangyayari is that, in fact, last night we were talking na may mga members of the academe din talaga, researchers, na pumupunta sa mga tribal groups or mga lumad groups to convince them na kaya pumirma sa mga mining corporations, no? Nakakalungkot talaga yan kasi ginagamit sila ng mga mining corporations in order to win the hearts of the people na para pumayag na lang sa mga mining corporations. At yun yung role natin, no? As philosophers, critical thinkers, we ask questions, who benefits from these agreements, from these development programs? Is it the lumad people or the big corporations. So, makakatulong sa atin yung mga, siyempre, we have background siguro, class analysis, for example, sa society, nahahati yung lipunan sa 2 classes, no? So, sino makikinabang nito? Kapag naging, isa pa yung problema, yung divide and conquer strategy ng gobyerno na pinaghahati-hati yung mga lumad. Sila mismo pinag-aaway-away at pinapalabas na tribal war. No? In fact, yung paramilitary group na na-mention ni Father kanina is mga lumad din yun eh. Mga lumad din sila. Inarmasan ng militar upang kalabanin yung kapwa mga lumad nila. So yan, nakakalungkot na mga issue yan. No? Ang take ko dyan is that when you go to the community, when you go to an area, we have to bear in mind na yung culture nila is not perfect naman talaga. No? So, yung attitude natin, yung hermeneutics of appreciation and hermeneutics of suspicion na lagi nating daladala. We appreciate their life-giving practices, beliefs. At the same time, we criticize their mga aspects nila which are death-dealing, for example, which is no longer helpful for them and for the entire Luman community. We are not, kasi ang problema dyan, maging isolationist yung attitude ba? Kasi relatively okay naman kami, so we won't involve in the struggle. But at the same time, yung mga kapatid naming lumad sa ibang lugar, pinagpapatay na. Inaagaw na yung lupa nila. So, isolationist yung attitude. So we have to also, as philosophers, we need to, yun yung role siguro natin to inform them. Ito yung nangyari from a global perspective and from national perspective na meron talagang development programs that will really affect human communities. Time will come na sooner or later, you will also be affected by this. And mahalaga na yung ma-raise yung kanilang consciousness, conscientization ang tawag natin yan sa theology natin, conscientize, raise their political consciousness so that they can see the wider perspective, wider reality. Na hindi lang yung parochial community or local community yung makikita nila, but they have to connect their situation from a wider perspective. Yun ang mahalaga na ma-educate din sila. Doon tayo mapasok siguro. No? As political theorists, political scientists, social scientists. Yan ang role natin.
Sir Ryan, ano question? I have a question for my friends, Sheldon, Ben, and Miguelito. Related question. I think this is allowed. Allowed, ginasa. I allow you. For Sheldon, is there a way, for instance, to look into utang ng loob from a positive point of view when we talk about politics, considering the circumstances of Filipinos, the context they are in, although from an ethical point of view, it is obvious that it disadvantages the people from the point of view of fair play. But on the other hand, we cannot also discount the possibility that it has also helped other people. So meaning to say, what is good for one can also be bad for another, but what is bad for one person can also be good for another. Because we realize that, it's like somebody loves you, someone has to suffer. And thus, is there from a political end, can we look at it that way? Considering the type of brand of democracy that we have, it is not to condone utang na loob, which ultimately is to the benefit of the powerful politicians. Okay? Because that's how he exploits the masses, those people who have no means to compete. But can we look at it differently from another angle? For Ruben, considering your divine devotion to the sect, are you really serious? Is he even a serious philosopher? If you look into the reality of violence, when we talk of violence, it's not just physical violence. An idea can be very violent, for instance. Even the notion of identity, the notion of a nation can be exclusivist, meaning to say, if I value my country, if I love my nation, if I consider my culture, for example, it can also mean that I am blinded by my own values, by my own culture, and so therefore I might, in that regard, exclude others who do not belong to the same sphere of morality that I believe, even if we do not call it immorality. But whatever these norms, these habits are developed, but at the same time, it also allows us to identify people. And by identifying people as ourselves, so it can also mean that as we create, as we try to destroy what we might call centers of power, as we try to destroy other monsters like liberalism, for example, is a monster for the sake. Isn't he also creating another monster with the kind of ideology and the kind of perspective that he has? So, isn't it that this is the reality of the world? We are a globalized society, and so therefore we have to admit that even if we have differences, there is actually something that is unique in us. We cannot actually deny that there is really something universal. The fact that we are human beings, the fact that there is what we call moral worth, the fact that we have to respect people on the basis that they are rational bipeds. Even if we disagree with the definition of what rationality means, the mere fact that we can recognize persons as persons doesn't it in a way allow us to admit that we owe something to people from a moral point of view. And so therefore we cannot be violent as regard to this kind of universal idea. And then kay Nilito, is dancing in major. No? Are they just being exploited? So some kind of a cover up for the reality of our prisons. Because in truth, you see, I have a program in my barrio. I actually put up a technical vocational school there. We gave scholarship free. So we have since 2011, 2,000 graduates. And then TESDA contacted us, our teachers or instructors. They go to these prison cells, Davao Penal Colony, and then they teach them welding. What they tell us is that the prisons are overcrowded. They cannot defecate. So they actually bring Magnolia ice cream gallon and they use that in order to defecate. So when they sleep, they have to schedule their sleep. So meaning to say there is some kind of inhumanity that is happening around. And so that this sort of things that we find being portrayed on TV, on mass media, and even on social media, even if we, given for the sake of argument, there's something positive about it, isn't it like a diversion from the actual and the real issue? We have to at least pay respect to these people, because even if they are criminals, that does not take away from them their rights as human beings. So meaning to say, the real task at hand therefore is for government to be able to give them provisions, so that, because a lot of them actually are innocent, a lot of them are in prison because they cannot, procure the best and the most intelligent lawyers. And so that's the reality. So what do you think? Is it a good thing really, or should they just stop it so that they can respect concentrate on something that is far more important than dancing? Because I don't really like dancing. Thank you for your intelligence.
I will have to bank on the concept of common good. I say politics in the Philippines is really very complicated, very challenging. For example, Thomas Aquinas is very idealistic in his students, if you put like that. When you debate something, people become evil, something like that. Now, for example, a politician has a party. In Philippine politics, you have a better chance of winning if you have a party. Because if you're an independent, unless you're very popular, then there will be no problem about that. Now, at the end of the election, so your objective as a politician will be for the common good, for the people that you're serving. Now, I understand that you have utang na loob to your party. Okay? So much so that there is really that great temptation that whatever your party asks from you, you are really indebted to do it. Now, if you will not do it, your people, the people you're serving, will be at risk of being granted by what the government should give back, even if it's due to them. You know, the government should help these people because that's the role of the government, to provide for the material welfare of the people. Okay, but because of this utang na loob that we practice, you cannot also help but sacrifice the benefit of the people because of thinking of this utang na loob. Now, I believe that in the saying that the general welfare is still better than your personal welfare. So in that case, I would say that you just swallow whatever you have in yourself for the sake of the common good, the people you're serving. Okay, and that's what politics is in the Philippines. Because if we really talk about being idealistic about it, then we will say that I don't care about you. We will probably listen to what Quezon has said, that my loyalty to my party ends with where my loyalty to my country begins, which is also very good, actually. But Philippine politics is very complicated. We really adhere to party system, relationship with our party. No matter how stupid you may look, because we are indebted to your party, you really have to say yes to your party for the sake of the people you are serving. Thank you.
Sir, nalamdaman ko sa divine intervention. Actually, sa question mo, sir, there are things na violence and then the moral perspective and the culture. One of the unique perspective ni Check when it comes to violence is as the reason why we perceive this action as irrational, like for example, when someone would explode, bomb, and something and everything, Check would explain that from his notion of objective violence, wherein this subjective violence, we perceive it as irrational, but actually when we go deep, it can be explained in Chechian term the objective violence. Objective violence is it would appear as natural, it would appear as not as normal, but actually there is a violence. Chechek would like to an example here is this stock market, the failure of stock market, unemployment. These are violence, and it goes normal. And the thing, what Chechek wanted is this kind of violence is wala responsible and na violence. Everyone is wala. It's because what happened sa market mo na lugi ang stock market or na wala kay trabaho is because nalugi ang stock market. And it's because that with that kind of perspective ni Chechek, that is why there is the so-called the irrationality irrationality of actions, which is called matawag nato na subjective violence, di ba? For example, sa tuwa, I cannot really pinpoint the example, concrete example, but maybe magdabugta or something if dili magranta ng atong mga request sa atong administration, and the reason why we don't teach na maayo sa atong student because violence is from that systemic the kind of violence na yan. And when it pagkabot sa moral view, when it comes to morality, although Chechek is dili siya kayo klaro when it comes to morality, because he would say na I think there is a need for a new kind of morality, a new kind of ethics, a code of things. Particularly, he would say na I don't need to understand you. It's just that I think kuno na you need, I don't want to understand you. I don't want to hear things from you. All what is important is we live in is a new. That's why where Chisek would say there must be something, a new kind of morality which does not tells us not to understand the other. But it does not follow na we don't want to understand the other. The narcissistic play is should be there. Like for example, although I don't like understanding the Manobo or other Lumad, but I should not be killing them or throwing bomb other ganang one ang point ni Chechek. That's when it comes to moral perspective.
Parang relativism ka.
Parang ganun.
Relativism. Mumulan lang. Mumulan.
Hello. Good afternoon, Sir Ryan. Thank you for your question. Well, all of your points are well taken. I could not agree with your observation. But the thing is, I could not address in general terms all the problems of the penal system of our country or even the worldwide issues in penal facilities. But this phenomenon of dancing inmates in Cebu, I am taking it as an initial steps wherein we question the practices of our penal systems. Of course, I am not also in favor of capital punishment. In the same way that I am also in favor, I am not in favor of EJKs. So, prisoners as they are remains human beings. So, I am trying now to initiate questions on the method of confinement as a valid or an effective method of rehabilitation. So here we are seeing that it's possible that in a penal facility, pwede palang magkaroon ng entertainment, which is really ridiculous. Kasi penal system ito, tapos pwedeng magsayawan, mag-picture, mag-selfie. So it's really contradictory to the whole idea of penal facility. So if this is possible, through dancing, these people will create a different picture of what it is to be a prisoner. Then it could also be possible that other ways of rehabilitation, such as there are so many other possibilities. Could be seminars, education, or any other training that or psychological methods where we can incorporate into the method of rehabilitation. So in the same way that priests, for example, undergo a rigorous training in the seminary, scholars have to undergo extensive training in education. So maybe these people who are there, because of course I believe so that they are also innocent people, but the general idea that the prison cell is really a place for those who are found guilty of crimes. So just to raise the discourse on the idea that confinement is really not an effective method, wherein the government is really spending a lot for penal systems. The conditions inside, and especially the issues of drug, pagkaroon ng drug, for example, in the Benedict prison, there is also classifications in terms of status. So, pag mayaman ka, maganda yung cell mo, politicians, so on and so forth. So, there is really a valid problem with the penal system. So, with this phenomenon of the dancing inmates, I look at it as could be an initial step wherein we could find ways to improve the global practice of confinement as a method of rehabilitation.
Yes, brother. Question po? Can I do what Ryan did? 3 questions also.
Sure, no problem. Nag-disciple
Sugdan man yan, so pwede lang ipadayon.
Sige po, sige po.
Okay, so the last 3 speakers. Sige po. I'll begin with Rendolph. You're there? Okay. Thank you for your paper, Rendolph. As you were listening, as you were talking, I was listening. I was very much reminded of my 3-year experience with the Dulangan Manupo. No, it's the other side. It's actually the same range of mountains. And that's why the terms are very similar. Pido, Limud, and all of that. I do appreciate your paper in the way that which it tried to enter into the linguistics and the meanings of these words within the framework again of how this can all be appropriated for purposes of the good, the common good of the area. Ayan. Ang tanong ako. But you know, you're familiar with Schlegel's studies on Tiburon, no? Because that's the rich literature from the anthropological perspective, and especially what he dealt with in terms of the forests and the land, but also into the very life of the Tiburon. Specifically because the Tiburon is one of the more known indigenous peoples in Mindanao who are really Pagani. And for a long while, they were known to be very fierce, no, in terms of resisting. But in fact, that's where the whole challenge of public sphere is, no? Because where is that public sphere going to be brought towards in terms of the continuity of that emancipatory spirit that is in them? Are you familiar with the fact that they were at the forefront of creating a wider public sphere in relation to the BBL earlier and now BOL? That they tried their best to really expand on a possible public sphere that this time will be able to deal with the moral issue, especially because, and you know that in ARNM today, no, their rights to their ancestral domain from the legal perspective is not honored. And that's why now with the BOL, the proposed organic law is reversing its decision, and it will recognize IPRA. And in fact, that's where the debate is. That's why I don't know why Raymond is not here anymore. Yet to go, no? I wish you were here because this would be an alternative to the Kanti. It's very strange that even as there are already case studies that show to us that the whole IPRA is bankrupt, and the Kanti strategy does not really solve in many cases the land issue. The Tiduray that has this very strong emancipatory Bagani tradition are more interested to really have that in the BOL territory. And they did appropriate the public sphere for this. So I'd like to ask your opinion on that. Okay? Did you get my question? Okay. For Jerry Ungkalan. Sige, Ungkalan. Yes. I was there at your area. In fact, I brought my students, my anthropology students there. And it was with the ICMs that our immersion was arranged. What was very clear, and I continue to go there too, because especially next year we will have a whole 1 year engagement there in the diocese, and one of the major issues in the whole diocese of Malaybalay is of course the lumad. But as you know already, there's a whole range, no, of responses and actions across time and across the whole space. And this is just one in the Quezon area. But of interest to me there, even at the time when we were there, because we were told that apart from Pinduga, there were already other attempts of other groups to take over land. It seems like it's a, it's been effective at certain places, and because of that success, it is empowering other communities to do the same. And you can always look at it, say from the perspective of an initiative that could really expand, because success always breeds greater interest. No? And if this Tinduga experience will maintain itself and will not be militarized further, and there'll be killings and massacres and so on, that could generate greater assertion. And that's one very effective strategy, just taking over. We have the parallel experience of urban poor, taking over housing that are not being used, it's happening also. So in the Lumad, it's taking over land that is not being used, but which actually were ancestral domain. They owned it before, but all this land titling that has happened in Bukidnon and elsewhere have dislocated the original owner. But you also know that the other strategy is Humilao. You heard their march that went all the way. And there was a little bit of success because they were supported by alternative lawyers. Although what they really aimed for has not really been, to the extent at which was the reason why they marched. So that's another one. And then of course another strategy is Hati. Then are you familiar also with what Father Walpole is doing, the Jesuits, in the other areas, the tail end from the Sambong Gate to the Mirorion? So, what I'm saying is in that whole landscape, beyond Quezon, but if you cover the entire Malaybalay diocese area, there are all kinds of initiatives, But my only fear, and I did share this with the ICM sisters, and they said certainly it is something to consider. The whole question still is, as the situation worsens, it would seem as if all these strategies, engaging government through CADI, engaging through rally, public march, and so on, the way that's allowed, and taking over, this is the one that is far more vulnerable to how the landowners will be in cahoots with the military. And then you have the Lianga. At least for the moment, it's not happening. There were killings, but it's not in the scale yet with Lianga. So my only question there is there a way by which you prepare for that eventuality? And is that the concern? And in your field work, were you able to enter into knowing how you would handle it in case that vulnerability will reach a higher level? Because you can almost assume that, because land in Bukidnon has really become a very controversial, a very delicate situation. Third, Zizek. I haven't really read much, but one anthropological professor in UP, when I was doing a study on, what was it now, and he said, Karl tries Zizek. Who is this Zizek? I googled and I found a bit of material. And there was certainly something that he wrote that did resonate with me, and especially because his perspective nga of this whole what you share, but something more in regard to what was that? Just being sensitive to the flow of imagination, of creative solutions, and so on. But are you familiar with Marawi? What happened in Marawi? Marawi siege. At least you've heard of it. You've read a bit about it. Siguro, and you've seen footages of this on TV because media really covered it. Now, this is a situation where violence erupted. Violence as being responded to by violence. So the first impulse of violence was the ISIS, led by the Mounted Brothers, who, as we were told, although there needs to be still greater investigation to really know the truth of this, but from what you can gather, there was an intent on the part of the ISIS to establish a caliphate in the city of Marawi, and this was supposed to be their opportunity. But as we know, ISIS, from what, again, because it's not our primary experience, but all this collective news that have come to us is very violent. It's the only way by which they are able to really aggressively reach whatever goal of caliphates and so on. And we finally have this experience in Mindanao. But the response of the government was also violence. And look at where Marawi is now. And it's not just the violence of the bombs dropping and everything else connected to that. People disappearing until now. We don't know exactly how many people have died. There's no documentation of that. There's been no reparation, or they're talking about 8 people. That's one level of violence. The second level of violence is more than a year already, and there's no hope that they will be able to return, especially ground zero. And that's also violence. Now, if CSEC were to come to Marawi, how would you handle this whole situation? And even you, if you go to Marawi along with CSEC, how would you appropriate it? Because it would be very good, no, if there is some kind of philosophical reading of that particular reality, although that's the least that is needed. The greater need is to do something about the rehabilitation. But for purposes of posterity, when people need to try to interpret what happened, would it be useful?
So thank you, brother, for your question. So, if I could remember, you asked me about, or you asked my opinion, knowing that the Dedra is the forefront of this emancipatory struggle, especially in the context of the new Bangsamoro organic law. And I interpreted it as a question of where is this struggle going, knowing that this is already a form of a public. At the same time, during those days, it was scheduled for Manila to I think he was speaking with the legislators there and government lawyers, something to do with the IPRA and so on. And indeed, that was their I'm so positive of where they are going. They're now in the project of expanding the. If I know it right, the team-wide justice system, the political system, I think they're trying to build that, or to organize that not only between Fedorites and Nambalian community, but now among the Manobos as well. Maybe, I don't know if there are other tribes which they would like to, parang ganun ang direction. So, but I feel that it's like they're clarifying now and seeking for recognition, institutional recognition of their system, political system, and leadership system. One of my observations is there parang pag-aalanganin when it comes to the NCIP and the IPMR. The NCIP, ano nga yun? National Commission for Indigenous Peoples, and then the IPMR, Indigenous Peoples Mandatory Representative sa municipality. Kasi daw, sabi nila, sa NCIP naman kasi, hindi naman sa government daw yun, no? Tsaka hindi naman sila nakokonsult. So, in fact, kami, nung nagkanda kami ng research, dumaan kami sa NCIP, pero sabi nila, it's not enough. We have to go to our community. Talagang mag-ask ng permission. Because we don't recognize NCIP that much. The same goes with the IPMR. Kasi always the impression is, tao man yan mayor. So, what I feel that they're doing is they're trying to establish autonomy of their own public sphere. Siguro one of their challenges is the resources. At this time, nag-relate lang talaga sila sa mga NGOs and all that. Last year, when they conducted the Teduray-wide Tempada Limud, because they had to lobby for resources, they have to go to the municipality, both municipalities of South UP and Nuru UP, just to be able to transport the community into that one big gathering. And one of the tendencies is to politicize that gathering, precisely because they lack the resources. So I think that's one of the challenges. In fact, that's what I told them. No? That your public sphere is strong, it's very good, but there is a tendency to be politicized because, practically speaking, logistically speaking, you have to seek assistance from the government and all that. So, but, I'm positive because nandun pa rin talaga yung spirit of wanting to, the Bagani spirit. They don't want to just be under mere puppets of the government or mere services, government services. In fact, that's also one of their critiques kasi may mga government projects and then yes, they're parang tinatapunan sila ng mga ganito minsan through the NGOs, but their claim is you are not consulting us whether we want it or not. Please consult us because we better know ano talaga yung kailangan namin. So ang nangyayari, ang basa ko po, minsan kasi ang ginagawa ng government, no? Parang I would consider it destructive kasi hindi nila nire-recognize talagang team-wide system. For instance, kung halimbawa may mga issues concerning the Teduray community, pinapataan sa kapitan. Minsan ang kapitan ay hindi naman Ilonggo or hindi naman doon. So, hindi dumadaan doon. So, there is no recognition. No? So, and then these people, because they do not belong to the leadership, so there's always the tendency that they just follow kung ano yung ang gusto ng kuwan. Kasi wala naman, sunod wala naman tayong magawa, di ba? Pang kapitan, so siguro it's also one of the challenges. They have a strong leadership system, pero yung I don't know, influence nito sa iba, sa baba, hindi masyadong nakuan kasi nga there are umaagaw yung other and also that would also tell something about the social cohesion now, especially that in those areas na hindi pa na-penetrate ng mga settlers, na-penetrate na ngayon sino ang nagmamayari ng mga farms, mostly the Ilonggos or the Muslims. And so, it's like, on the one hand, their political system is strong, the ideology is strong, but on the other hand, the practical side, the life world side, is not much because of the influences. So, but I'm still positive na pinapastrong nila yung banda doon sa ideology. Pero yung doon sa baba na, yun yung yun yung kulang, yun yung nakakaligtaan. Diba?
Okay, thank you, brother. I forgot to mention a while ago that NCIP already awarded or issued a CADP to them, no? September 2014, na-issue yung CADP. However, Pablo Lorenzo, refused to acknowledge the CADP, and until now, siya pa rin nag-control dun sa lupa. So in other words, there were already a series of legal actions done by the Lumad, by Team Loga, in order to really claim the land. But unfortunately, wala talaga nangyari. So dumating ko sa punto talaga na they have to do this, yung occupy yung bungkalan, no, in order to assert their claim for the land. And it's, I agree with you that it's really risky because of the presence of private armies dun sa area. And mabuti nga wala pang military presence during the time, no? Pero I think na if the situation would worsen, talagang papasok yung military doon. Pero so tingin ko naman, while I was talking to these people, no, they are willing to face the risk, no, because they don't want to go back to the previous situation of hunger and helplessness na wala silang makain. O di kaya babalik sila dun sa pagtrabaho dun sa mga farm na where they receive 50 to 100 pesos a day. So, parang sinasabi nila during our conversation na at least dito meron kaming mataniman at may makain kami kahit na dangerous or risky. So siguro, as church people, malaki yung role ng church people doon, based on my experience doon yung IFI, napaka-helpful ng kanilang program, yung Lumad Accompaniment Program nila, na talagang nandun, mere presence lang, malaking tulong na. Not necessarily helping them, parang pasensya lang talaga, because whenever these private armies see those men in pink vest, kasi naka-pink vest yung IFI volunteers, less or walang violence na nangyari, no? So siguro as church people yun yung pwedeng may ambag, no, ng diocese ng Bukidnon, yung presence ng church people doon, kasi it can really lessen the level of violence whenever nandun yung mga church people na nag-accompany sa mga lumad. Kasi nga nandyan talaga that's a reality, no? Nandiyan talaga yung threat ng violence dun sa lugar. Pero yun nga, sabi nga nila, no? Of course, ang mas violente yung sistema nagtutulak sa kanila na mag-occupy ng lupa, yung landlessness, yung land grabbing at yung feudal system natin, no? So we have to look at this also from a larger perspective, yung structural violence na nagtutulak sa mga lumad na mag-occupy ng mga lupa na to reclaim their lands.
I think, although, disclaimer lang, brother, I am not really that one part when it comes to SES, but in terms of the question with the ISIS Marawi conflict, SES identify differentiate the outburst of violence. One, he considered this pathetic communication, the pathetic communication wherein there is no sense of vision, a violence without a sense of vision. And he make an example of this 2005 Paris riot, wherein people who are considered as a outcast are excluded, we're protesting, we're doing violence, but they were not that they were just excluded. They were just unrecognized. Maybe I don't know if eksakto ang akong analysis. If our pag-vote kang Duterte is an example of apathic communication wherein there is no more a sense of moral compass. Because what we do is because when Duterte language would in his language makita natin na he would say na I will kill those I will kill those drug users and I will end corruption and that it's like that. And that kind of words is a recognition to this excluded. So therefore, we can say that I don't know if it's eksakto ang akong pag-interpret, but one kind of interpretation need to check when it comes to this subjective violence is the so-called pathic communication, wherein there is no sense of moral compass.
Mama Kuya po, actually nag-go.
Meron pong bago at mas mahaba pa. Matagpuan po sa North Cotabato, Makilala, sa New Israel. Opo, may haba po na 2.3 kilometers. Yes. Balikan, bagong attraction sa North Cotabato.